Hey family, it's your boy Chris Sims. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Chris once again. Today's episode is a continuation of my conversation with clinical therapist Perrin Felder. I hope you enjoy it and I hope you learn something that you can apply to your life. Remember, stay real, stay right, stay relevant. Peace. Right.
So how can you change that? Hey, let's challenge what's going on around me. Let's challenge that maybe what I'm doing may not be working. Let's
Mm,
challenge that if I've been in the same situation 5 years, let me try something different.
right. Right.
Right? So with that understanding, Chris, I put the client in control. Hey, listen, if you see that your health is deteriorating gradually and you have children, you have a husband. Let me, I don't like to say the word obviously because it puts the client in like a sort of like a diminished mental state. Now you're like not being a therapist, you're being a tyrant. Well, obviously, I like to say, well, how about we look at this? If you've realized in 1996 that you had poor lung function, and
Right.
now it's 2002 and you're on a ventilator, it looks like things have gradually declined.
Right. Right.
Do you think maybe we can try something different?
Mm,
And Chris, here's how I navigate that. Now just picture an everyday occurrence. You're walking down the same street to go home.
right.
If you walk down the same street, you can sort of predict what you will see.
Right.
But
Right.
if you take a left at the right, it
Mm,
opens up new experiences.
right. Wow.
It's that simple, Chris.
Wow.
Doing something different
Right.
to get a different result.
Right.
Now, when that happens, Chris, in the hardest cases, when I have brought that reality, they've entertained it.
Wow.
And then look, after that, Chris, which I've never had that experience. But if they're unwilling after that, I guess I'll be a deer caught in the headlights. Like,
Wow. Oh man, Perrin, you are dropping some. Can I
appreciate it,
even
brother.
call it nuggets, man? These are like boulders, man.
I
These,
appreciate
oh
it.
my goodness. Oh my good. I kind of want to jump back a little bit because
Uh-huh.
we were talking about men's mental health and
Yes.
we were talking about all these pressures that men have to deal with,
Mhm.
and all these expectations that are placed on men, and 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 basically
Mhm.
we as men oftentimes, like you were saying, basically in secret we're kind of dealing with these things in secret.
Mhm.
We're not really sharing our thoughts and feelings because we're not supposed to have them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so um, and I mentioned also that I've been going to therapy, and
Hmm.
one of the interesting things that happened is my therapist sent me an article to read.
Mm.
And the article was on bitterness, and I'm like, what you sending me this for?
Mm.
And I'm reading the article and I'm uh like, did somebody write this about me?
Hmm. Mm.
Because it talks
Wow.
about resentment, and again, because of all those expectations that are placed on you,
Right.
sometimes you feel like you're not living up to it, or you're trying to live
Yes.
up to it and people not appreciating it, and those
Hmm.
things can start to create bitterness within
Yeah.
an individual. And can you talk to us a little bit about that bitterness stage, that
Hmm.
men specifically may be dealing with?
Hmm. Yes, definitely. Going back to the two P's, provide and protect.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes if men have a man has some type of trauma,
Mm,
right? The man will then implement those two P's in regards to how it was provided for them.
mm,
And it creates thoughts in their mind about what a man should be. It creates distortion in relationships, distortion in duties and roles of a man.
mm.
And so how can I offer protection when no one protected me?
Ooh, ooh. Oh.
Right? How can I be this model man when my model man left?
Mm,
How can I grow? And not only how, what about if the fear? What if they have a fear of doing these things? Well, what if something happens when I go to work and I get angry? What if I perpetuate the same cycle and never come home as my dad did?
Wow.
So that anger, that fear, it fuses together and it creates this feeling of bitterness, angry, irritability. And so what happens is when the roles that are assigned to me are not the roles that I can adequately do. It presents all types of inconsistencies and self-esteem issues within myself. I'm bitter to the whole world because what you expect of me, I cannot do. And I can't tell you that I can't do it because I'm a man. Right? I can't tell you that I'm broken. I can't tell you that I don't know how to love. I can't tell you that I didn't never keep a job.
Wow.
Because if I tell you, the role that society has placed on me as a man will decline. And the role that you have placed in me as a father and husband will decline. So I have to walk around hurting. I have to walk around unfulfilled. I have to walk around and go along to get along. Because if I take 1 minute to uncover what's really there, everything you and society thinks about me will fall. So it creates an internal bitterness to everything. Everything, Chris. Wow. It gets to the point where normal conversations cannot be had because normal conversations are always associated with something I'm supposed to be doing. And I can't secretly tell you that I stay up all night crying because I know my reality says I can't do it. How many men have went to work and lost their jobs and came home and saw their children eating and got upset and sad and scared because they may not ever see that again because they just lost their job?
Wow.
Who do they run to in that moment when they have a wife that needs and children that they need?
Wow.
So now, Chris, the unresolved conflict from childhood comes back as a staple. I'm going to do what brought me peace when I was a child.
Wow.
Because I never got that work done. Because I was so afraid to tell people what happened. Chris, it's so much.
Wow.
It's so much. And I remember, Chris, let me tell you, here's the seeds of where it starts. I remember when I was in a check cashing place one day, and a black lady, I just had finished coming from work, and a black lady was with her kid. And she said something to me, Chris. When she said something to the kid, and I said, oh my goodness, if this kid doesn't get help, this kid is going to be damaged. She said, man up. You're a man. Stop that crying.
Wow.
Now here's the thing, Chris. And I can go so far. But let me tell you, and this is something that was
sorry.
It's okay. Take it. I can unpack this so much, but let me give you the understanding of emotions.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So with emotions, something came to me 2 days ago when I was doing therapy. I tell you, the Lord sometimes drop things. And I'll say it to you, you can broadcast this because this is something that may help you and help everyone else. Okay. Thoughts are how we communicate within ourselves. Emotions are how we communicate with the world. It's so true. Right? So here's the thing. Emotions, like this is how I talk to men that I have that were incarcerated, that were women beaters. I think I had someone that did years for murder. This is how I help them understand emotions. Okay, listen. Emotions are literally things or entities within our body that helps us communicate to the outside world. Emotions are given by God. They are not something that is happenstance that comes up. Emotions are given by God. This is the reason why there's many scriptures. One of my favorite. Be angry and sin not.
Right.
Now, see, people associate anger with being bad. Oh, Chris is so much. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is how I break it apart.
Oh man.
Your
Okay.
emotions are as real as anything in your body.
Uh-huh.
If you do not express them, right, then it will have negative effects. For an example,
Uh-huh.
if you have to go to the bathroom and
Mm-hmm.
do number two, if you don't want to go because you're in an area where you might be embarrassed, what's going to happen to your body? Your stomach's going to hurt. You're going to probably get gas all the way up to the chest.
Right.
You're going to start moving in your seat. You're going to show visible signs that you're not expressing a natural body response.
Right.
This is exactly what emotions. Emotions are as natural as going to the bathroom.
Wow.
And when you don't express them, Chris,
right,
there is casualty. When you don't express them, there is casualty. So I help men understand the emotions and what they are. The emotions are ways in which we express how we're feeling. Okay, and here's another thing. For you married and couple people, it's important that your spouse understand how you are emotionally receptive.
Right.
If I don't understand what triggers your emotions and I do it, how am I held at fault? The Lord gave mankind many things, but the one thing we can do in common is communicate.
Wow.
If you don't come to me with what hurts you and I continue to do it, instead of coming to me and expressing that it affects me, this is what we'll say. You're doing that on purpose. You don't love me. You're doing that on purpose. How could you love me? Well, how about you come tell me what I'm doing to upset you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my good Perrin. Oh my goodness. Like, excuse me. You probably saw my head down, but I was taking notes, man. That's
it is fine. Listen,
it
is fine, man. It is fine. It is definitely fine. So
Jeez.
Emotions are very important. So when that woman told that kid, man up, men don't cry. What you're telling them is that every time they want to cry, they have to hold it in. Just like the scenario with the bathroom. And when they want to cry and have to hold it in, and when you have to use the bathroom and have to hold it in, your body goes through this pain. When you want to cry and hold it in, your mind goes through pain. And now you can't express how you want to express because crying is weakness. So now you're going to go to the next thing. You're going to become a woman beater.
Right.
You're going to become a womanizer.
Right.
You're going to become someone that's emotionally distraught. You're going to become someone that does not behave well in society, all because you were neglected the natural response to something that happens.
My God.
It was imprinted in your mind that if you see something that's undesirable, don't cry.
My goodness. And that whole...
Now here, Chris, let me go a step further and say this. Let me go a step further because I really want to say this.
Go ahead.
Chris, we define masculinity in men by so many things.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I always tell my godson, who just texted me, I said, and I hope and pray that I am within the guidelines of your beautiful podcast. But I tell him, I said, because you have a pole and two balls does not make you a man. That is what the gender you was assigned, the atomical evidence of the gender that you were assigned. A fully functional man can handle his emotions.
Whew.
Yes.
Oh man. Okay. So God gives us emotions, and I love what you said. You said our thoughts is how we basically communicate with ourselves.
Yes.
And our emotions is how we communicate with the world.
Yes.
And it's crazy how you related that to someone having to go to the bathroom, them holding it in, and the many complications that will come from somebody holding it in. Man, and then what happens after you hold it in and all these physical complications take place. Now everybody's looking at you and say, why are you like that? You should be better. You should know better. You should what? Like what? You too old for that? Huh?
Yep.
huh?
Yep.
You know, oh, you know, oh, you don't talk about your feelings. You don't talk about. It's like, but I was told not to.
Mm.
And not only was I told not to, I was never taught how to.
Yes, that's facts. That's
Oh,
facts.
oh my gosh.
That's facts, Chris.
Oh, whew. Parent, oh my goodness.
That's facts.
Oh my goodness. I'm
That's
choking back
facts.
tears right now, man. I'm choking back tears
Oh
because like
man, that's facts.
this is real, man. This is real. This is real. And it's like you get to an age where you start to realize, man, certain things in your life are not where you think they should be.
Yes.
And the reality is, if certain things are not put into place, you can't
Mm-hmm.
expect the results of that. You know,
Yes.
I'm a husband. I have children, and the question that I'm asking myself is like, how can I expect my children to be whole human beings,
Mm-hmm.
physically, emotionally, and spiritually, um, um, uh, whole human beings, if I
Mm-hmm.
myself am not that? Where would they
Right.
learn it from?
Mm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ah,
Yes, sir. And this is the whole go along to get along, Chris.
yeah,
You said something so powerful. And see, I'm glad that we're doing this because I didn't even look at it this way. You said it's not only that I was told not to express. I was never taught how to express.
yeah,
And that's important because now I'm a 45-year-old husband and or wife and a mother or father. And now I have to reflect on what got me by to get me to this point instead of coming into holistic wellness.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
too late for that. I can't
Mm,
stop and think about my childhood. I can't stop and talk because I can't stop and learn because I have a child. I have
right.
children. I have obligations. I have a job. I have a home. That's where the men, that is the line that the men is caught between. And then now here's the thing, Chris. When they go into a situation where it brings reminders of
Yeah,
something that may have occurred,
yeah,
or their father leaving, or even any type of sexual trauma abuse,
right.
now they avoid those places, and now their children don't know why. Dad, can we go to Billy B's?
Ooh,
No, I can't go to Billy B's. No, no, no. But Dad, all my friends go. Why we can never go? Okay, Mom, you take them.
mm,
Dad, but I really want you to go. Dad can't tell you that when he was in Billy B's at 5 years old that he was touched. Can't tell you that.
mm.
Because now, and sometimes if you're in a non-supportive, that happened to you and you never told
Mm.
me and you around my kids, how I know you're not gonna do it?
Mm.
Right, right. So it's like, so now we start, it's a classic PTSD sign. Now we start to avoid certain things that bring about that.
Right, right,
And it creates, we're going back to that word, it creates that bitterness because you want to be there for your child, but you can't be there.
right, right. And it's not even that, it's not even so conscious that it's like, oh, my kid wants to go to
Yeah.
Billy B's, and oh, I'm not gonna let them go to Billy B's because somebody touched me. You
Right.
really don't even remember that. You're just reacting. It's like, no, no, we ain't going to no Billy B's. Oh,
It's suppression. It's the unconscious uh constriction of thoughts. So
yeah,
Freud talked about the defense mechanisms. We
yeah,
know these things. And one of the biggest defense mechanisms that everybody know is denial.
right, right,
I'm not going to say there's an issue because if I have to say there's an issue, then I'm going to have to go back into all these things that will hurt me. And I give the Band-Aid scenario.
right.
I say that if we get cut and we immediately cover it with a Band-Aid,
Mm,
what's going to happen is that because the Band-Aid is going to restrict the airflow, it may turn into pus, it may get infected. But if
mm-hmm,
you take that cut, clean it, put
mm,
ointment on it, and then put the Band-Aid. And then after the Band-Aid's been on a couple while, take the Band-Aid off so the scab can develop, and then the scab can peel away, and then new flesh and new skin can happen.
yeah,
That's the whole deconstructing process of therapy. We want to put a quick Band-Aid.
yeah,
I'm distressed. I need a solution because I got to go to work. Okay, we're going to give you some exercises, do them. What happens if that come again? What
yeah.
happens if it come again at a greater magnitude? There's no internal skills to combat that. So
Right.
now you're having an anxiety attack at 3 a.m. and you're running out of pills.
Mm.
And your next doctor's appointment, your next therapy session is in 5 days. What do you do, Chris?
Wow.
What do you do?
Wow. Wow.
You know, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Ah,
It is definitely a lot.
oh
It's
man, it's a
definitely a
lot.
lot.
It's a lot. You asked a question. You asked a question about what do you do, and
Right.
my thing is, I think that people self-medicate, but
Yes.
before we even get to that, we're gonna
Uh-huh.
touch on about self-medicating.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to go back a little bit because again, we were talking about, you use the example again about the child having to use the bathroom, and that creating some, that could possibly creating some physical ailments as a
Mm-hmm.
result. I read a study and some time ago, not too long ago, and the study was talking about uh, how tears, when we cry,
Mm.
it
Mm-hmm.
releases toxins and contaminants out of our bodies when we
Mm-hmm.
cry, but we're taught not to cry, and we're taught not to emote, and so now it stays in us,
Mm-hmm.
and now that creates complications in areas in our bodies physically, not only emotionally, not only psychologically, but actually physically, because of our
Yes,
emotional
Chris.
status. uh we physically we become sick, and we don't even know why. We don't even know
Yes. Yes.
why. Perrin. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm so thankful for this podcast, Chris, because I definitely think that this podcast, along with many, is going to deconstruct the stigmatization of
Yeah.
mental health among
Yeah.
men, especially African American men.
Oh yeah.
So, Chris, like you just said that, holding in these things complicates everything. Okay,
Yeah.
so what if you're a person that, you know, has an issue with being neglected and abandoned because your father wasn't around,
Mm.
and then you have a dinner date with your wife and she doesn't show up to the dinner date is at 3. She doesn't show up to
Ooh.
3:25, and now all these thoughts of abandonment come. Now you're slamming your napkin down. Now you're getting up from the table abruptly. And she doesn't know why.
Right. Right.
She doesn't have the slightest idea. All she knows is that she was a little late. Then
Yeah.
when you go home, you may beat her.
Mm.
You may Chris. It's so much to
Yeah.
unpack with
Right.
understanding. But see, here's
Yeah.
the problem with us African American men, and I gotta put it
Yeah.
to us
Yeah.
because of this thought of emotions as being weak.
Right.
That's
Right.
girl stuff. That's girl
Right.
stuff. That's girl stuff. So there was a study on the brain. It's crazy because when I finished grad school, there was a study that this guy did, and I'm going to try to find a link and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
He had two brains,
Mm-hmm.
a female brain and a man's brain, and
Okay.
he literally stood in the middle of these two posts that had these two mannequins with the brains, and he literally deconstructed the physical makeup
Mm-hmm.
and the mental makeup.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at a brain, you see all those, I don't know what they call them, but all those different, I don't
Yeah.
know what they
Yeah.
call whatever. Okay. If you look at a female's brain,
Uh-huh.
theirs are very interchanged.
Mm.
But if you look at a man's brain, it's like a maze. It's very compartmentalized.
Wow.
This is the reason why a man can compartmentalize his
Yeah.
feelings and throw it away. And this is the reason why a woman sometimes can't. Because when they get something, those things, they, we need to talk about this now. A man
Right.
can sit there and
Right.
say, I don't want to talk about something for 10 years and
Right.
and compartmentalize it.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
it's about helping the black man understand that, okay, the fundamental message that you were
Mm-hmm.
told was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotions are as natural as your lungs taking in and out of air and
Yeah.
your heart beating blood.
Right.
If your lung does not take in and out of air, you die. If your heart does not beat the blood, you do not send oxygen to the body parts and they die.
Right.
If your emotions are not adequately expressed, your relationships die.
Right. Right. Right.
Your whatever has to do with any type of response
Mm.
dies. Not only did God give us the ability to speak our words, God gave us the ability to speak with our bodies.
Yeah.
And this where emotions comes in. And there's types of affects. There's blunt affect, there's restricted affect, there's libido. Affect has to do with your emotions, but how you respond to others
Right.
using your emotions. So a
Mm.
blunted affect is an affect that's very restricted. I have the ability to show, but I'm not going to.
Right. Wow. Wow.
So it's very important for the Black man to understand that emotions is not a girl thing.
Right. Right.
You have them too, but
Right.
you have compartmentalized them in another country. And now when something happens, by the time you get to the appropriate emotion to respond, you've already damaged everything.
Ooh. Ooh. I'm jumping back.
Go ahead, jump.
I'm jumping back a little bit. You gave an example of a husband waiting for his wife at the dinner table, and she shows up a few minutes late, and he's slamming on the table and everything, and then gets home and beats her. And some people's minds, they may just they may say, oh, I don't abuse my wife, so we're good then. But I'm the type of person, me, I would get quiet. So I do the silent treatment thing. So that's what I like about myself, right? So I've been working on that, guys. I've been working on that.
Great.
And if anybody knows my wife, Jessica, there's no.
Oh yeah. Hi, Jessica.
There's no beating her. There's no beating her. That's not gonna happen. Jessica. If she don't get me, her family would get me. So
I love that, Chris. I love that.
And if her family don't get me, her friends will get me. So
yep.
so I doubt it. I doubt it if I even get past her. But yeah. So there are other ways other than beating your wife physically that can be abusive as well.
Yeah.
Emotional abuse. The silent treatment. That's emotional
big.
abuse. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's big.
Like you said, communication is needed in relationships. And especially with women, they thrive on communication. And if you're not communicating, you essentially, again, like we need communication. We need to be able to communicate. You're killing something in that other individual. Man, oh man. This jeez. This is
yes,
so
man.
good. This is so good.
It's a lot.
This is a lot.
It's a lot.
This is a lot. We were going to talk about self-medicating.
Yes.
That's what are some of those ways that men self-medicate? When
Okay. First of all, we have to understand what it is to medicate. Okay, so medicate is alleviate symptoms, right? Now, when we look at medication, we look at pills, we look at sometimes self-medicating can come in the form of utilizing substances and stuff like that. And what see, here's the thing: what substances or medication from the medical doctor or other forms of self-medicating, like excessive exercise, excessive eating, all these different things, right? So our body has these two neurotransmitters called dopamine and serotonin, right? Dopamine is considered the happy neurotransmitter, right? Sometimes when people are depressed, they have a deficient supply of dopamine. And this is the reason why they're given medication, because the medication substantiates the normal dopamine that the body should be producing. What does dopamine produce? Dopamine produces the euphoric feeling. Euphoric is above all. Euphoric is you are sitting at the right hand of the Father. That's euphoric. And Chris, when there are things that sort of affect us, one of the fight, flight, or freeze. There we go. We internally figure out or try to figure out ways in which we can not feel. There we go. And this is big right here, because wow, let me just take a minute. Let me just take a minute. Okay. Feeling has to do with your emotions. Feeling has to do with the fact that what you're going through is real.
Yeah.
When we're operating in a sense of denial, we are denying that it has happened. So we are putting ourselves in the mindset that I know that something happened, but it didn't happen to me.
Ooh.
Right? Let's say that. I know that something happened, but it didn't happen to me. So basically, with that understanding, we sort of decompartmentalize that stigma over there, right? Because if it comes to us, we're gonna have to feel. If I have to feel, I can't deal with the way I feel. So I have to do something that's going to alleviate that feeling.
Yeah.
So we go to medication. We go to substance abuse. Because I have a lot of clients who have marijuana abuse, and they're like, Mr. Felder, when I'm smoking, temporarily it's gone. And I said you used the keyword temporarily. But when something happens again that may mimic that experience, you're going to need that coping mechanism again. You're going to need that medication again. You're going to be in the gym for 6 hours and you have a family to go to. You're going to be in the refrigerator eating until you're on 600-pound life.
Right.
And if you realize, and this is crazy because I'm actually watching that show now. I love it. But shout out to Dr. Now, right? But if you understand, if you look at when they go through their journey of weight loss, they always go to the quick fix. They never, when they sitting in Dr. Now, if you've ever seen the show, when they're sitting in Dr. Now office and they went on a scale and the scale is 600-700 pounds, when they sit down in that chair, their first thing is not, how did I get 700 pounds? Their first thing is, how do I lose 700 pounds? If you understand how you get to a place, you understand to get out of it.